Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Fujan.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Fujan Zane's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Fujan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Fujan Zane's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Fujan app today.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the Life Reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Fujan Zane, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fujan Zane, a psychotherapist and author and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. I'm thrilled to have you join me today for what I promise you to be an amazing discussion. I learned a lot today, and I hope you do too. In this episode, I chat with Dr. John Lewis. He's the founder and the president of Dr. Lewis Nutrition. Previously, he was a full-time associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at the University of Miami, Miller School of Medicine. He's also a diplomat, faculty member, and advisor of the Medical Wellness Association. He's a lecturer for the Institute for Brain Potential. He's been the principal investigator of over 30 different studies in his research career. Much of his research has focused on evaluating the effects of nutrition, dietary supplementation, and exercise on various aspects of human health and disease, something we all need. He has over 180 peer-reviewed publications in scientific journals where his work has first appeared in print, including some of the leading scientific journals such as AIDS and Behavior, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, American Journal of Public Health, Journal of International AIDS Society, Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, Nutrition and Cancer, an international journal, Sports Medicine, Stroke, and the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine, and the Gerontologist. His seminal publication is in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. From his Alzheimer's study, not only spurred him to leave academics and pursue his science-based business career, but also enabled him to be selected for a widely acclaimed TEDx Miami about how dietary supplementation can improve brain health. Today, we talk about the effects of polysaccharides found in aloe and the benefits on your health. We talk about his research that he did with MS patients and also Alzheimer's patients, and the benefits of it to healthy people as a prevention method. So I'm positive that you will enjoy the conversation. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, my YouTube channel, connect with me through my website, fujanzane.com, any of my social media platforms. Share your thoughts with me, and I love to hear from you. Really, I do. So contact me, ask me questions, share your the topics that you want to hear. So I'll be waiting. Now, without further ado, it's Dr. John Lewis.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Fujan Zane, and Dr. Manoukian, three experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Fujan Zane's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Fujan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Well, hello and welcome, Dr. John Lewis, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
I saw your TED Talk this morning, actually, and I learned so much with things I never knew, and I got intrigued and more excited. And I was looking at the research that you had sent me, and you're a researcher, and you have been a faculty in many of the universities, and now you're really just doing research and talking and educating the world about this concept of the phenomena. And it was interesting to me where looking at inflammation and the world of Alzheimer's, which research is constantly coming, and it's still something that everybody says they don't know how it's happening and why it's happening. And you started learning about nutrition long time ago, and you chose to look at the world of nutrition and how what we eat, how we eat, the supplements that we eat changes our body, and we can be powerful in this concept of how to take care of ourselves versus just kind of allow the medical industry to tell us what we should do as far as medication. And you talk beautifully about how we are reliant with just some sort of medicine is not enough and sometimes counterproductive, and becoming responsible about our knowledge in how to change our life with the way, the supplements and food and all of it changes this kind of trajectory of diseases that are consistently around us. Can you share about what got you interested in this?
Well, it goes all the way back to when I was just a little kid, when my grandfather started pitching baseball to me in the backyard, and it put me on a path of playing sports most of my youth. And then I got into drug-free competitive bodybuilding in college, and I was always very interested in just movement, playing sport. I played basically anything with a ball other than soccer, never really cared for soccer, but as I got into bodybuilding, I really became, I took my interest to another level in the sense of becoming more sophisticated about how the body responds to a stress, which any type of exercise is obviously a stress to the body. And in this case, it's actually a good stress, unless you obviously become an exercise addict. That's a whole different animal we won't talk about. But as I got into bodybuilding and then trying to become more sophisticated about how the body actually responds to this stress called exercise, and a particular type of exercise, like a bodybuilding type of exercise program, I also realized very quickly that nutrition was just as important to the pursuit of being a bodybuilder. And actually, it's more important, quite frankly. The training is one thing, but what we stick into our mouths is another. But very quickly, my bodybuilding career came to an end after a couple of years, when a couple of things dawned on me. One, I was, as I mentioned, being drug-free. I was not willing to take steroids or growth hormone or all these other things that these really large guys are taking, and even in some cases, women as well. I was not at all interested in going down that path. And number two, I also had sort of a reckoning, if you will, within myself about looking back in my youth and my childhood and being sick quite a bit, and then being able to recognize, as I started learning more about nutrition and physiology and biochemistry formally, that a lot of the like throat infections that I dealt with as a young child and as a teen were very directly related to the things that I was putting in my mouth. So it completely changed my approach to food and diet. And I grew up, I don't know about you, I grew up in a family of people who ate for taste, not for health. I had no role model of health. I didn't have, I didn't grow up around some chef or researcher or scientist or physician or whatever who had like this, dedication to using food for health. It was just all about, we ate for taste, and if it didn't taste good to us, we didn't eat it. It was as simple as that. And so I had to take a much more serious approach about it. And quite frankly, as a student, I really didn't, both as an undergrad and as a graduate student, I really didn't have any idea about becoming a researcher, professionally conducting clinical trials and all these things. It just kind of happened as I was sort of wandering down this path of my journey of life, I would meet people and, discover new things and then find new interests as I was going through my 20s. And I just, at some point said, wow, I really enjoy the exploration of research and how you can, try to help humanity basically by discovering things that could potentially be beneficial to health. And I'm still on that journey. I mean, even though I am where I am today in terms of what I know about certain key things that I think are very beneficial for health related to nutrition, I'm still an open book. I mean, I feel like I still have many things to learn, and I'm by nowhere a finished product, let's say. But it's been truly an extraordinary ride so far, especially these last 20 years where I've really had the opportunity to do some incredible things. And so I'm excited for, being here with you today to share some of that journey and continue planting seeds for the future.
Yes. Now you started talking about aloe and how you were finding that using aloe had changed a lot of the matters internally. Can you share a little bit about that and what your research has shown about what aloe does?
I'd be happy to. Aloe vera is arguably one of the, if not the most beneficial plants to human health. It's certainly, in my opinion, in the top 5. It's just an incredible plant. We know humans have been using it for thousands of years. However, one of the interesting things about it is usually when any given person, especially I guess us in America, you hear the word aloe vera and you think it's for a topical purpose. You think it's for a sunburn or a cut or a wound, something on the skin, on the surface of the skin that you can see. And that's a fine use. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what I've learned is that actually that gel is 98.5, 99% water. And so most of that material is not even really health promoting per se. It's actually something very concentrated in that gel that's called polysaccharide. And polysaccharides are complex sugars, and they come from not just aloe vera, but lots of just about every plant in the plant kingdom has some level of saccharide in it. It's certainly depending on the plant and the chemical complexity of it, but the particular complex sugars in aloe vera that we refer to as acetylated polymannans, ace-mannan, there are several different synonyms that basically mean the same thing, but these are very complex sugars. And using the word sugar, especially for us in the United States, we hear the word sugar, we think what? Bad, right? So not only is aloe vera kind of put into a corner about only for topical purposes, but then if you say anything related to sugar, the average person immediately associates that word with being bad for health, which is also untrue. It's a very poor use of the language. It depends on the type of sugar, whether it's a monosaccharide, the simplest form, or a disaccharide or a polysaccharide. And the disaccharide is a little more complex. The easiest example of a monosaccharide is high fructose corn syrup, which clearly is not very good for us. It spikes your glucose, it spikes your insulin. If you're eating high fructose corn syrup every day, you're probably setting yourself up for metabolic disease. Then disaccharides are things like table sugar or sucrose. Again, I'd probably agree you shouldn't be using much sucrose every day, if any. But then these polysaccharides that come from aloe vera are just on an entirely different level. And they're so much more than a digestible carbohydrate. They actually have very particular impacts on, well, mostly the immune system. That's what you were alluding to, that my colleagues and I have been conducting our research on. But really in every cell in the body, it's not just related to or distinguished by, one particular organ system or another. It's actually every cell in our body utilizes these polysaccharides. And so oxygen being our first nutrient, we need to breathe. We need to, consume oxygen as our first nutrient. But then after that, we need vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, elements, cofactors. But we also need these polysaccharides for our cells to function properly. And so the study of glycomics or glycobiology is looking at how many of these different saccharides that occur in nature are actually potentially very beneficial for us. And so I would just encourage all of our listeners, number one, to not just think of aloe vera as something for a topical purpose, but actually, according to our research, we've shown taking it orally, these polysaccharides that are concentrated into a therapeutic dose are very beneficial for health. And then number two, just be mindful of the use of the word sugar. Not all sugars are bad for us. That's a very ignorant and patently false statement. So you have to be mindful of the use of the language as a scientist, as a writer, as somebody who, I've spent my career really being very particular about the way I speak and the way I write things. I don't think people should use terms ignorantly when they're being not factual. So,
I mean, fruits obviously have it, vegetables, other vegetables that we eat, like carrots, and many of the other vegetables also have the sugar, like you're saying. We use it as if it was a synthetic, or the overuse of anything. It seems like it's going to have an issue. I remember also in your work, you talked about inflammation and how the inflammation itself it becomes a cause of so many other illnesses. And how does polysaccharides bring down the inflammation, or how does that work with it?
That's a great question, and that's another very fascinating word that we tend to throw around the word inflammation a lot without making sure that we put it in proper context. So you're referring to the chronic type of inflammation, but I want all of our listeners also to understand that just because you hear the word inflammation also does not mean it's bad for us. We actually need the inflammatory response that our body creates when we're involved in a car accident, or we have some other type of trauma, or we get a virus or a bacteria. That type of inflammation, the acute type, is actually very necessary. Those signaling mechanisms are very, very crucial for our survival. If we didn't have them, we would not survive that trauma or that infection. So you're referring to the chronic type. So what the body, if you are chronically inflamed, in the case of people that we were studying, those that had Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis, among others, clearly we know through a lot of research, not just our own, but that chronic type of inflammation has a very significant relationship to other facets or other features of those diseases. And so what these polysaccharides appear to do, and this is a bit theoretical, only we can just look at our data and look at data from other labs and say, okay, well, this is what they appear to be doing. What they appear to be doing is they are signaling mechanisms for the immune system to do certain things. So whether it's to turn on our natural killer cells, or to turn on our different T cell subsets, or to turn on dendritic cells, or to rebalance the pro to the anti-inflammatory components to our immune system. Those are things that we've published in our research, and again, other scientists from around the world. So it's essentially a rebalancing of the immune system's different components, but also an ability to lower that type of chronic inflammation through those different immune system components that get either upregulated or downregulated or rebalanced. So it's a very intricate type of process, you might say, but over time, and again, based on our research, this isn't my opinion, this is based on our research, this is what we've shown.
So you talked about one of your research on MS. I know that I've worked with, I'm a therapist, so I work with a lot of my clients who have had MS, and obviously, they go through depression and anxiety, and I work with from the concept of how to manage the illness that they have and the depression and anxiety that shows up with it. But I've also noticed that there's a lot of plant-based and chemical-free based nutrition that are given as a part of the treatment to people who are suffering from MS, and it has really, really shifted the illness and the management of it, and they've been able to get back into, off wheelchairs and really be part of life again. How does the supplement or the work that you're doing has shown that it really helps? In what are the mechanisms that the polysaccharides helps? the autoimmune system, or I read two, right? One from Alzheimer's and one for MS.
Yes.
A little bit about that too for our audience.
Sure. So in both of our clinical trials, we use this allopolysaccharide-based formulation that is a dietary supplement. We didn't change, you mentioned diet. We did actually, in both studies, we didn't change anyone's diet, medication, exercise, socialization, any other type of alternative treatment or therapy. We simply introduced this dietary supplement formulation into the study. And in the MS study, I would say our findings were very exciting, maybe not quite as exciting as what we showed in the Alzheimer's study. But as you know, having MS clients, people with MS don't actually die from the demyelination of the central nervous system. They typically die from infection. And so this polysaccharide formula, especially the ones from aloe vera, are very anti-infectious. So in our study, we showed that people at baseline had an average of just under 8. They had 7.9 infections at baseline, which is just a crazy number. And then after 12 months of being on our formula, they went all the way down to 2.5. So not only were we helping people to, stay alive essentially, but we were also keeping them out of the hospital, out of urgent care centers, all this significant financial outlay that goes to treating these infections for people with MS. So that was the first really exciting finding that we had. Secondly, we showed an increase in a protein called epidermal growth factor, and EGF is very, very important for remyelination of that tissue. And so as you know, as people that progress, they live a long time with MS, and then they have this demyelination of their central nervous system. And so EGF is very important for boosting that. So that was a very exciting finding for us as well, because that was telling us that basically these polysaccharides are turning on this one particular protein that will help the body to restore the myelin. And then number two, the FAS gene, FAS gene, that gene is also, it's like you could call it an overall indicator of immune system functioning, among other things that it does. And so we showed a very nice improvement there. So with this story of neuroinflammation, this chronic neuroinflammation that people with MS have, it's very important for their immune system to be modulated and to be functioning properly, because obviously, in addition to all this inflammatory damage that occurs, it also puts them at greater risk of these infections that they were having, that they showed that they had such a huge number of at baseline. So again, we were able to lower infections, improve EGF, and improve overall immune system functioning. That was just one side of all the work that we published so far. We had a whole host of other quality of life, mood symptoms, all these different symptomatology, different physical functioning subscales that we looked at. I mean, we actually had so much data from this study that we've actually now published 3 papers. In fact, we just published a 3rd paper actually this last week that we have now from that study. So that's 3 papers we published from the MS study, and then 4 papers we published from the Alzheimer's study.
What if somebody does not have an illness? How does this supplement work for them in improving their health? Because I know we've talked about, chronic illnesses, but these are also supplements that can be utilized, because you want to have a better life trajectory and be healthy. How do they support someone who's healthy and just wants better health?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for asking me that, because I do think that many times, especially if you're a caregiver of somebody with MS or dementia or cancer, whatever it is, you get so focused on the other person's disease, but that person, the caregiver, kind of forgets himself or herself. But I've been taking my own formula for over a decade. I've had my mother on it for over 15 years. My wife started taking it about 5 years ago when she was pregnant. Our daughter just turned 4 back in March. I've had her on it since she was 6 months old. So I'm giving you our family anecdotes to tell you that, number one, I wouldn't sell anything that I wouldn't take for myself or give to my own family. But number two, prevention is, to your point, prevention is absolutely as important as treatment or rehabilitation. Why would anybody want to wait till you get this tragic diagnosis of something, very deleterious when you could do something about it in the first place? So all of the effects that we've published, in all these various disease groups, they will absolutely be translatable to all the rest of us, simply because human physiology is the same regardless of who they are, who you are, who I am, who someone else is. Our physiology is still the same. Yes, of course, we have different exposure history, different genetic profile, different, different, whatever you want to call it, an overall clinical profile of your history and where you've lived and all the other things in the environment that you've been subjected to. But the same thing still applies in terms of we're all exposed to some level of, all of these things in the environment, whether it's 5G radiation, Wi-Fi radiation, blue screen all the time, all these chemicals, pesticides, herbicides that we eat in our food, the contamination in our water, the contamination in our air. I mean, on and on and on, all these chemicals that the humans from 150 years ago did not have in their bloodstream floating around or sitting in their fat tissue that we all have today. So all of these things are very detrimental to us. And if we don't utilize nutrition as a key component in trying to prevent cancer and diabetes and dementia and heart disease from hitting us, then, unfortunately, we're going to be at greater risk. And so these particular polysaccharides that my colleagues and I have studied now for so many years, again, in my opinion, I would put these at the top of our list of any tool in our toolbox that we can utilize to help us stay healthy. So that's why I look at prevention as being just as important as anything else in terms of, your strategy for optimizing your health and to help prevent having all these chronic diseases.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of times we also hear about side effects. Like, you could have everything has some benefits and then some side effects. As I was reading, it seemed like they had very minimal side effects that had shown in your research, possible for some people. They were kind of unique to that person, which had a high blood pressure, which they were being monitored, right. And then, possibly diarrhea that was being monitored. But if right. People are taking, I understand that when people are part of a research, obviously they're being monitored very clearly. But Correct. What if they're taking the supplements at home? Everybody kind of reacts to it differently. So what are some of the side effects that you have known in your research? And what are your suggestions that if someone, what do they have to watch for then to see whether the supplement is working for them or not?
Great question. So our formulation is 100% natural. It doesn't have any synthetic materials in it. It's plant-based. For any people like me, for example, who eat a plant-based diet, there's no issue with, having any animal food or animal derivative contamination. The number of side effects, we reported a couple in the Alzheimer's study you mentioned two of them, one having an accelerated heart rate and one having a loose stool. And I think there were a couple of others. You're talking very minor things. So in those cases, all we had to tell people to do was back down the dose. Whereas instead of doing 4 scoops per day, just do 1 scoop per day, and then work your way up over a couple of weeks to a month period to get to the target dose. And in every case that works. So if somebody has something like that, especially I would say the most common thing, which again has been extremely rare, is somebody would have, like, say, a loose stool or maybe runny poop or something. And so what I've tried to explain to people is that that's actually the body's response. It's a detoxification response. That's actually not a side effect. It may not feel comfortable or you may not want to poop that way, but that's actually the body detoxifying itself. And so you've gone to a dose that for your body may be a bit high. So again, you back down the dose and then build up slowly so that detoxification effect doesn't, cause you any, to have to change your pants while you're out at work one day or something, and I'm not trying to sound silly about it, but the reality is that we've documented so few side effects over, now it's close to a decade, actually, since, leaving academics. It's going on a decade, but but the side effects are very, very uncommon. I mean, again, if it's something GI related, the usual remedy is just to simply back off the dose and then start out at a very low dose and then just work your way up from there. On the flip side, people who start taking this formulation can notice lots of different things. I mean, one of the first things that people actually do report is better sleep. And you know as well as I do, we have a nation of insomniacs today, just all sorts of people looking for answers to sleep better. We actually have a lot of people where we have maybe a very small number of people that will say, oh, I've had some loose stool or whatever. We actually have a lot of people that report the exact opposite. They actually poop better. They actually have better bowel movements, better regulated bowel movements, and it makes their entire, gut function better. So there are lots of good responses there. Better focus, more energy, just feeling sharper, like you feel like a lot of people, as go through life today with this brain fog, whatever exactly that is. I'm not sure. It's obviously very unique and individual, but that tends to go away. And, just a better sense of well-being, like less soreness, less fatigue, less just sort of feeling run down, like all that goes away. So there are a whole host of effects. Some people say their hair grows better. I know my nails, I cut my nails like at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. My nails grow super fast. Skin gets better. I mean, there are just a whole host of things that people will experience that are not even, things that we've published per se.
So this is pure aloe, and you're saying that but it's different when you put it in the powder and you use it as a supplement orally versus, how much you put on tropically on your body.
Let me correct you there. It's not pure aloe. It's the aloe polysaccharide extract.
Okay.
So you first strip out all the water. That's again 99% of the volume of the entire gel. Get rid of all of that water. That's not really relevant. And then you still have other materials left over. You have amino acids, fatty acids, all sorts of other materials. We want to get those out too. We really want to focus what we use as purely polysaccharide. So it's not the same. And a lot of times when people hear me talk about aloe vera, they'll say, oh, I've got aloe vera growing in my yard. And we do too, actually. Here in Miami, we've got aloe vera growing in our yard, but I don't snip the leaf off and, suck the gel down. That to me that's not the best way to get these polysaccharides. You just would not get enough therapeutic. It would not be concentrated enough to get a therapeutic dose that you would need to really have any type of noticeable impact, especially for somebody, that had a really serious health challenge.
And the supplement is in a powder form, and they have to get it diluted with water or juices or something like that?
We have it in both powder and capsule form. So if people don't like taking a powder, you can get the capsule. The powder, to me, we flavored it with like a vanilla. It's like a citrus vanilla graham cracker. To me, I think it tastes really good. We get very few complaints on the taste, but you can mix it with water, juice, yogurt, applesauce, mashed potatoes, cereal, oatmeal, soup, literally anything. The only thing I tell people not to do is mix it with anything that's too hot. You don't want to damage the nutrients with anything boiling or just below boiling. So some people do like to mix it with their coffee and tea. I just tell them, let it cool down a little bit. Don't mix it as soon as it came right out of the coffee pot or the tea kettle.
And what's the difference between the powder, the usage of it with a powder or a capsule? Does it have a different impact on your body?
Not at all. It's the same formulation. It's just putting, for, again, people that don't like powders, putting it in capsule. Most Americans still prefer to take either a capsule or a tablet as their preferred form of choice for the mode or the format. So, for anybody that doesn't like the taste or the texture, it's in a capsule and you won't notice any difference.
Has it shown any type of adverse reactions in combination with anything else that a person, like particular medication, particular other food? I mean, you talked to just taking something away from it, but any altercations you've heard through your study? Because I think you've done these research for more than 15 years, right?
Yes, we have. No, not at all. In fact, if anything, our formulation actually makes other things like medications or other dietary supplements work better. The polysaccharides are actually an incredible nutrient in the sense that they're highly bioavailable, meaning that they get into the bloodstream to actually get into the cells to function properly. And they also help other things, help other molecules, other active ingredients also get better absorbed into the bloodstream. So we haven't, I mean, this isn't like, curcumin and ginkgo biloba. Those are two natural compounds that have a blood thinning effect. So if somebody's taking Plavix or warfarin, you have to be careful or a bit cautious if you then start taking curcumin or ginkgo biloba. We don't have any, there's nothing in our formulation that has any kind of interesting or, potentially adverse effects like that.
What got you to go from being an academic, being in, universities, in hospitals first, medical industry, then academic, to kind of, become an entrepreneur, kind of shifting from one to another? I mean, obviously you have a great formula that you're sharing with people, but you also kind of shifted your whole career from, the academic and researcher. Although you're still doing a lot of research, but are you still part of the clinical research yourself, or is it more shifted to the entrepreneurship?
I left academics for several reasons. One, because we didn't even talk about our Alzheimer's research today, but the Alzheimer's research we published from this same formulation that we referred to, that I've referred to from the MS study, I thought was going to be the beginning of something really exciting in academics. And I tried twice with NIH and twice with the Alzheimer's Association to get funding from those people to extend our work. And I got nothing in return. And so I got very jaded, and I became actually quite frustrated and even angry to some degree that these people that go around the world telling other people and other unsuspecting people that they are interested in nutrition and actually looking for things to help people with this terrible disease, and they're not. They only are looking for something that they can license to either a pharmaceutical company or a biotechnology company. And unfortunately, typically nutritional or dietary supplement treatments don't fall in that category. And so I refuse to spend the last 20 or 30 years or whatever time I have left, banging my head against the wall in an academic environment where all of my colleagues around me are doing all of this pharmaceutical research that, quite frankly, I think most of it is a waste of money. And then, just here I have something that actually helps people. I mean, we published clinically and statistically significant improvement in cognitive function in people with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease, according to the ADAS-Cog, which is the gold standard of assessing cognitive functioning, particularly in dementia. There's nothing else in the literature that can compare to our study. And if I sound arrogant when I say that, I'm sorry if I do, but you can compare it to the 5 FDA-approved drugs for dementia. You can compare it to any kind of diet, other dietary supplement, exercise, hyperbaric oxygen, acupuncture, cognitive behavioral therapy, music therapy, sound therapy, light therapy. I don't care what you compare it to. There is no other paper out there that shows the same thing that we did. And yet these people at NIH and Alzheimer's Association, they don't care about nutrition. I'm saying it point blank. They don't care, because if they did, they would have never let me leave academics, and I would still be there today, still doing this type of research. And so I just refuse to waste the rest of the best years of my life, trying to get a bunch of bureaucrats to give me money. It's not a good way to make a living anyway. It's a very, you work like a maniac. You work 80 hours a week to do all this research. You don't even make that much money in academics anyway. It's not like I was becoming wealthy as a professor at the University of Miami Medical School. I was making an okay salary, but for the amount of work that I did, it was really a joke, quite frankly. And so, I thought I had much better opportunity to leave academics. I'm still publishing, as I mentioned. I just had another paper published this week, but I think it's important, being in the dietary supplement industry, to have a very credible scientific base. I'm going on 190 peer-reviewed publications in my career. I think I have more than enough scientific credibility. If anybody is listening to me and they question anything that I've done, well, again, just go and read our research. You don't have to take my word for it. It's not an opinion. It's what we've published. And there's no, I don't have any axe to grind here. I mean, if that sounds bitter, I guess it is what it is. I'm not bitter about it. I'm actually kind of glad that it worked out that way, because if they hadn't rejected me, I'd still be in this academic environment where you have so much bureaucracy that just constantly, weighs you down and pounds you. And being an entrepreneur, being a businessman, actually, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to be beholden to some institution that, can tell me, oh no, John, you can't do that because we don't agree with that, or no, that's not the way we do things here. Well, that's fine. So again, I left, and being in business is no bowl of cherries either. I've dealt with some very shady characters, and I've had plenty of people, lie to me. And in fact, I've got a company now knocking off my product. But, it is what it is. I have very good science. My product helps people, and I refuse to lose, regardless of how many people punch me in the face. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because I help people. And I have people telling me all the time about how much better they feel, or how much better their loved one, or whoever it is that, I'm trying to help. And so that motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing. And that's what I'll do till I take my last breath.
Dr. Lewis, have your research been also done on different cultures and different places in the world with different kind of, body types or genetic types, or different types of nutrition that it shows up in different cultures? Or is it mostly done with United States and Americans?
Well, I mean, I've lived my entire life in the United States. I haven't had any funding. Remember, research requires this. You can have the greatest intentions in the world, but if you don't have the money to pay for research, you can't do it. And so I haven't had any real privilege to go to another country and run this type of research in other areas. I haven't had the funding to do it.
Yes. If there's anything that we haven't really shared and you want people to know, what would that be about your process, the product itself, and the benefits, or anything that we haven't really shared that you want people to know?
Well, number one, I would tell people that, if you're struggling with your health, if you're looking for answers, number one, there's no magic bullet. You cannot supplement your way to good health. You still have to eat well. And of course, diet is a very argumentative topic today. I mean, you've got people like me eating plant-based. You've got all these people out here today, promoting the carnivore movement, which I find a whole different level of debate. That's not even, I can't go there really, but anyway, there's no magic.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody healthy that ends up healthy with that diet.
I mean, I just don't get it. You're talking about only eating meat. That to me just makes no sense. But anyway, that's another conversation. But there is no magic bullet. You have to eat well. You have to take certain supplements. Again, I would say that these polysaccharides that we've worked with, you're not getting them from your food. So the only way you can get them is through a supplement like ours or competitors. And then if you have to move, we're meant to move. We didn't evolve to just sit around in offices all day. We still have to move. There's a certain time of our 24-hour schedule that we need to move our body. We have to sleep well. We have to manage our stress, not use tobacco. I mean, my gosh, if you're smoking today, what is wrong with you? I mean, try to do the best you can to get off of that. And then alcohol, I don't drink. I don't know about you. I gave up alcohol many years ago. I was never really much of a drinker anyway, but lots of research showing even just a little bit of alcohol, whatever that means, actually increases the risk of your different types of cancers, especially for breast cancer in women. So it takes a comprehensive, holistic approach, but I would put nutrition and including dietary supplementation at the top of that, not again based on my opinion, but based on the research that shows how all of these dietary behaviors are so strongly related either to increasing your risk of chronic disease or decreasing your risk. So that would be the last thing I would tell people. And if I'm assuming you'll have my website or contact information, social media for people if they would like to reach out to me for more information, either on, my research or what I do or anything like that. I'm happy to help people any way I can.
Yes, they will be on the notes, but could you also share yourself verbally?
Sure. Anyone who's interested, I would say the best source of information on me is drlewisnutrition.com. That's DR, no period, Lewis, Lewis, nutrition.com. We have social media channels under Dr. Lewis Nutrition as well, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. So I have a lot of information on our main website. And again, it's all the information about the research that went into the brand, went into our flagship product, Daily Brain Care, that's based on all of that work on Alzheimer's and MS. And again, I'm happy to connect with anybody who has a problem or an interest in this work and how I could be of benefit. I would be honored.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And I'll add a healthy life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foujan Zain is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.